morning, everybody. How are you today? I'm boiling. I thought I'll come to the garden in the morning because it'll be cooler. So all week I've been coming just for a couple of hours. It was like 4, 5, 6, 7-ish in the evening. And it's been so hot, too hot to work really. So I thought I'd come in the morning and beat the heat, but it's already boiling. I'm just looking, my shed thermometer says it's 30 degrees in here, which is, what's that in Fahrenheit? 86. I know it's not much, but it's the suddenness of it which has caused me a little problem, which I'll tell you about in a sec. Yeah, it's the suddenness of it. I mean, literally last week we were in vests and fleeces and scarves and gloves and hats, and now we've got this. It's not going to last. Next week we will be back to normal temperatures in the mid-teens. But anyway, let's crack on. So, today I've done a quick bit of foraging, which I'll talk about in a second. And I'm going to sow some carrots and hopefully sow some flint corn direct, because I ran out of loo rolls, so I'm going to do some direct sowings because it's warmed up. And other little bits and pieces. But before I go out into the garden, a couple of little upcycling ideas I've had. So, mashed and melted in the heat, and they have my hair stuck to them. Do you recognise what these are? It's the little covers from the, you know, the Baby Bell cheeses? So a friend of mine's kid loves these, and I suddenly had an idea and I said, oh, can you save some for me please? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these to make kind of blobs on the end of where the bean arches end. There are sort of horizontal bracing bars at eye height or at face height. So I thought, I've got loads of them. Look, I thought if I kind of mould a blob of it to stick on the end of the canes, hopefully that will stop me from either scratching my face or taking an eyeball out. But also, with some of the cotton reels, they're slipping down the canes, because there's obviously a hole in both ends of the cotton reel. So I thought I could bung one end up with a little bit of wax. Yay! And then the other thing I thought about is I use these bamboo toothbrushes, and I can't remember what the bristles are made of, but it's like a cellulose, it's like a vegetable made plastic. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, the whole thing is biodegradable, so you can compost them, but they take forever to compost because they're quite tough. But then I suddenly thought, actually, I can make that a little plant label. So obviously it's only going to be 3 or 4, well 4, I tend to change it about every 3 months, so 4 plant labels per year. But it's better than just chucking it away, isn't it? So if you're still using plastic toothbrushes, get yourself some bamboo toothbrushes. This very handily has the name of the company on it. I get these from a company called Save Some Green. Oh, I'm dripping with sweat already, so go and have a look and get yourself some bamboo toothbrushes. Right, that's upcycling talked about, weather talked about, let's get in the garden. Wow, it's so bright already. I can hardly see you guys. I will put my sunglasses on in a moment to protect my little eyeballs, but just while I'm talking to you, I can't bear talking to people in sunglasses, you can't see what they're doing. Anyway, nettles. So, I've been for a little forage. This is not for nettle tea or for nettle soup, because that little patch where I've got them from is visited by dogs and foxes, all manner of critters, and I don't really want to be using that to eat for my consumption. So I'm getting this today to use as a mulch, because this sudden heat, it's dreadful for my soil. A, because obviously we're getting to the stage we're having to water because we've got no rain, but B, because it bakes it to concrete. It's hideous. I actually missed a window of opportunity about a week ago when we first started to get a bit drier, when I could have worked on the beds. Oh, that's a noisy plane. I could have worked on the beds, can you hear me? to just break them down into a bit of a finer tilth. I didn't have the chance to come to the garden on that occasion. The next time I've come down, it's like concrete. I cannot work the soil at all. So I'm leaving it for now, those beds number 3 and 4. And then hopefully over the weekend we'll do some rain on Saturday night. So I'm going to belt down here Sunday morning and see if I can tickle over those 2 beds. So anyway, back to the nettles. Yes, I'm going to use these as a mulch. So you're probably familiar with the idea of nettles for making a fertiliser, where you sink them in a bucket of water, let them rot down, and then use that liquid diluted as a feed. Very stinky. But I thought, well, actually, if I use it as a mulch, I'm going to put this probably on the garlic. And once I turn it in, once the garlic comes out, I'll turn this in. Great, it's a bit more organic matter, isn't it? And if it does rain, their juices are going to get seeped into the soil. Brilliant. But I just want to mention, just as a sort of a general rule for foraging, I sort of follow a rule of threes and then 3. When I'm foraging for anything, whether it's nettles or hedgerow fruits, that sort of thing, I think in terms of leave a third for the plant, leave a third for wildlife, a third for foragers. Of the third for foragers, I always like to just take a small amount, because there might be a forager coming after me who would like some. So don't be greedy and strip a plant of everything. Firstly, because there are other foragers who may come behind you. Secondly, you don't want to destroy the plant. And thirdly, the wildlife. And this is really important at the moment with the nettles in particular, whether you're harvesting for consumption or for nettle fertiliser. We're in the middle of April at the moment. By about the beginning of May, all the way through to July, these things are vital for some of our butterflies. So, for instance, red admirals, peacocks, small tortoiseshells. So, for instance, with the small tortoiseshell, they will start laying their eggs in May. They sometimes have a second lay in, I think it's about June. So this is vital habitat for them to lay their eggs. Then when the eggs hatch, those little caterpillars are using this. It's a vital food supply. So if we go along and take away all these nettles, where do the butterflies lay their eggs? If there's one leaf to lay their eggs on, that's my neighbour doing that big build again. If there's only one leaf to lay their eggs on, those caterpillars hatch. What are they going to feed on? So please, 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 just be mindful. If you're not sure, before you go on a forage, actually there are loads of foraging sort of learning tours you can take. If you Google sort of, foraging teaching or whatever, you should find stuff. But I think most of us know that somehow nettles are good for wildlife. Is it butterflies? Is it whatever? Have a little look online if you're not sure. If you see that it's important for a particular thing like a butterfly, go and do some research on that butterfly and find out what its life cycle is. It's all about the life cycles. And if you see that butterflies are laying eggs in July, for example, you know that you need to leave that plant alone in July. So today, before I've taken any of these, I've had a really good look in the patch. I've been turning leaves over to make sure there's no eggs, and there aren't. If you're turning leaves over and seeing eggs, just leave that patch completely alone. Like I say, it's not just a habitat for them to have their babies in, it's also their kitchen, their larder. They need it for food, so just leave it alone. You've probably got about another week or so where you could forage for nettles without it being an issue for butterflies. But again, remember, a third for the plant, a third for wildlife, a third for the foragers. So I've just taken a small bit of that clump, left absolutely loads for other people and for the butterflies. I'm going to get it all chopped up, and then, I'm going to give the garlic a bit of a watering. I wouldn't normally, but we've been so dry and their roots aren't actually that long. The soil's still wet about 3 or 4 inches down, so for things with longer root systems, that's fine. but the garlic are looking a little bit wilty this morning, so I'm going to get them watered and then mulch straight away to hopefully help that stop that water from evaporating. Nice soundtrack, eh? So peaceful a minute ago, with the birds twittering. What I don't know about nettles is how long after harvesting them does it take for their sting to be ineffective. I'm not risking it, I'm keeping my gloves on. I wouldn't normally want to water at this time of day, but they're desperate and I want to water before I put the mulch on. Also, I won't do much watering today. It's just the things which have got really shallow roots, because we do have moisture about 3 inches down. So the broad beans, spuds, the brassicas, they're all fine, but these shallow rooted plants and seedlings need a little bit of help at the minute. I think I'll probably get another bucket and go over the whole thing again before I mulch. My kale sprouts are well and truly going to flower. Now this bed I'm going to use for parsnips, but I can delay taking these out and getting the bed ready for a couple of weeks, because at the moment the bees are loving these flowers. I say that, they've all disappeared suddenly. But if you have got some brassicas which are going to flower and you're not desperate for the space just yet, please leave them in, because the bees love them. And at this time of year there aren't a huge amount of other food sources for them. So yeah, leave them for the bees. Oh, this bed, beautifully prepared. It had the chickpeas in last year. They got tickled out at the end of the year when the bed was covered to protect it, covered with cardboard, mist, to protect it from the rain. All set to go, and then literally 5 days of this heat baked it to concrete. So you can see even this was a really, really fine tilth. It was all riddled. It was the spoil from under my deck. Riddled and ready to go. Now this is riddled stuff and I can just about break through it. You imagine in beds 3 and 4 that are not riddled. It's nigh on impossible. So I'm just doing what I can today. Just marking for where the leaks will go, so that I know where to sow my carrots. I'm sweating. Yuck. Goodness me, excuse me having my sunglasses on and not being able to have eye contact with you properly, but it's getting hotter and brighter by the minute. It's not even noon, and it's wonderful. Anyway, so sowing your carrots. I'm doing 2 varieties this year. I'm doing, new to me, one that's called Rotild. I think it's pronounced Rotild. And I'll be having those out first. And then my favourite that I've been growing for, oh gosh, I think the last 4 years now, Autumn King. I love them because they're perfectly happy to stay in the soil all winter. I'm still harvesting the last of my crop from last year. They're great. These are the ones that come out massive. I think they come out particularly massive in my garden. Now, the thing when you're sowing carrot seed is try to sow as thinly as possible. Ideally, you don't want to have to thin your carrots later on, as in take some of the seedlings out to give space for the others to grow. Because every time you disturb carrots, I think I've got a fly down my throat. Yeah, every time you disturb carrots, whether it's through thinning, even things like watering, the scent they give off drives the carrot fly crazy and draws them in. So the less handling of any description you do with your carrots, the better. And in fact, quite often when I water them, because they're in the same bed as the leeks, sometimes I'll grab one of the leaves from the leeks, crush it, so it's just come out, put it in the watering can and then water with that water. The theory is that the smell of the leek disguises the smell of the gorgeous carrots and the carrot flies. Don't come zooming in, that's the plan. Right, on this Scotchio day, let's get sowing. So very simply, a shallow drill. Oh, I'm trying to do this so thinly. I don't know whether I was saying it earlier, but the ground is really moist, about 3 inches down. And of course, these little seeds, they obviously don't have any roots, they don't have any means to get down there to that water. So once I cover the drill back over, I will water very, very thoroughly. You know, hopefully some of you will get a finer tilth than I've managed. But look, the fact is, you know, the soil here is difficult. You know, I'm not lucky enough to have gorgeous raised beds and masses of compost just donated to me. So it's one of those things, isn't it? You just have to make the most of what you've got. And, you know, this may not be particularly TV photogenic, but, you know, if you've seen the harvests over the years, it doesn't matter if it doesn't look really beautiful on screen. The fact is, it gives me vegetables, and that's all that matters, isn't it? So I was a bit mean with the sowings here, so I'm just going to, this little bit that's spare. So I'm going to do 2 rows of the Autumn King because, as I said, they're a really fantastic flavour, really robust for soups and stews and things, store really well in the ground over winter, and then just very simply draw a bit of the soil back over them and then give them a jolly good soak. Before I do that, I'll get the other 2 rows in. Definitely not as pretty or as fancy pants as Gardener's World, but I love it. I love my little veggie garden. It's so great to get some seed in the soil today and to feel this warmth and hear the birds and hear the buzz of the bees. It's the most magnificent time of the year. Just so much excitement and hope and optimism, and you know, imagining how the garden is going to be in just a couple of months' time. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy today. So yeah, Monty Don, you've got a very beautiful garden, but I love mine more. Right, another bucket. It's getting hotter by the minute. It's so beautiful. It's really odd though, because it feels like the height of summer. It feels like the middle of July, and then you look around the garden and there's all this bare soil still. And as it gets hotter, the work gets slower. Kai and Gary are both around today, so I think we're all gonna stop for a little while, go and find a little shady spot, have a glass of something cold, and just make the most of this. Because next week we'll be back to normal temperatures of around 14 or 15 each day, rather than this sort of 27, 28. It's been gorgeous. Yeah, feeling very, very peaceful now. So I'm going to say cheerio to you all. I'm going to leave you with a few little images from around the plot today, because it's just been so magical. So I hope I'll see you all again really soon. But in the meantime, take care everyone.